Hello, Mr. Johnson. I'm finna read page 27. What's the What's the fifth obligation? The boy asked. 2 days ago, you said that I never dreamed of traveling. The merchant answered, the fifth obligation of every Muslim is a pilgrimage. We are obligated at least once in our lives to visit the holy city of Mecca. Mecca is a lot farther away from the pyramids. When I was young, all I wanted to do was put together enough money to start this shop. I thought that someday I'd be rich and would go to Mecca. I began to make some money, but I could never bring myself to leave someone in charge of the shop. The crystal are delicate things at the same time. People were passing my shop all the time, heading for Mecca. Of them were rich pilgrims traveling in caravan with Severin and Camel, but most of the people making the pilgrimage were poorer than me. Mama, you listening? All right. All who went there were happy at having done. Hold on. Everything. Oh, with that little crackhead crossover. Let's check it out. All who went there were happy at having done so. They placed the symbol of the pilgrimage on the door of their houses. One of them, a cobbler who made his living mending boots said that he had traveled for almost a year through the desert, but that he got more tired when he had to walk through the streets of Tangerine buying his leather. Well, why don't you go to Mecca now? Asked the boy. Because it's the thought of Mecca that keeps me alive. That's what helps me face these days that are all the same. These mute crystals, all these on the shelves and lunch and dinner at the same horrible cafe. I'm afraid that if my dream is realized, I'll have no reason to go on living. You dream about your sheep and in the pyramid, excuse me. But you're different from me because you want to realize your dreams. I just want to dream about Mecca. I've already imagined 1,000 times crossing the desert, arriving at the plaza of the sacred stone. The 7 times I walked across it before allowing myself to touch it. I've already imagined the people who would be at my side and those in front of me in the conversation and prayers we would share, but I'm afraid that it would be a disappointment, so I prefer just to dream about it. That day, the merchant gave the boy permission to build the display. Not everyone can see his dreams come true in the same way. 2 more months passed, and the show brought many customers into the crystal shop. The boy estimated that if he worked for 6 more months, he would return to Spain and buy 60 sheep, and yet another 60 in less than a year. He would have doubled his flock, and he would be able to do business with the Arabs because he was now able to speak their stranger language. Since that morning in the marketplace, he had never again made us of crime. And Thummim, because Egypt was now just a distant dream for him. As Mecca for merchant Annie, the boy had become happy in his work and thought all the time about the day when he would dismark a trough as a winner. You must always know what it is that you want. The older king had said. The boy knew and was now working towards it. Maybe it was his treasure to have wound up in that stranger land, met up with a thief and doubled the size of his flock without spending a cent. He was proud of himself. He had learned some important things like how to deal in crystal and about the language without words and about omens. Off, one often afternoon, he had seen a man at the top of the hill complaining that it was impossible to find a decent place to get some to drink. After such a climb, the boy, accustomed to recognizing omens, spoke to the merchant. Let's sell tea to people who climb the hill. Lots of places sell tea around here, the merchant said. But we could sell tea in crystal glasses. The people will enjoy the tea and want to buy the glasses. I have been told that beauty is the great seducer of men. The merchant didn't respond, but noon, after saying his prayers and closing the shop, he invited the boy to sit with him and share his hookah. The strange pipe used by the Arabs. What it is you looking for? Asked the old merchant. I've already told you I need to buy my sheep back, so I have to earn the money to do so. The merchant put some new coals in the hookah and inhale deeply. I've had this shop for 30 years. I know good crystal from bad and everything else there is to know about crystal. I know its dimension and how it behaves. If we serve tea and crystal, the shop is going to expand and then I'll have to change my way of life. Well, is that good? I'm already using the way good. Before you came, I was thinking how much time I had wasted in the same place while my friend had moved on either went bankrupt or did better than they had before. It made me very depressed. Now I can see that it had been too bad. The shop is exactly the size I always wanted it to be. I don't want to change anything because I don't know how to deal with changes. I'm used to the way I am. The boy didn't know what to say. The old man continued, "You have been a real blessing to me today. I understand something I didn't see before. Every blessing ignored become a curse. I don't want anything else in life, but you are forced me to look at wealth and at horizons I have never known. Now that I've seen them and now that I see how immense possibilities are, I'm going to feel worse than I did before you arrived because I know the things I should be able to accomplish and I don't want to do so. It's good I refrained from saying that to the baker and Tarifa, thought the boy to himself. They went on smoking the pipe for a while as the gun began to set. They were conversing in a rap, and the boy was proud of himself for being able to do. There had been a time when he thought that his sheep could teach him everything he needed to know about the world, but they could never have taught him a rap. There were probably other things in the world that the sheep can't teach me, thought the boy as he regarded the old merchant. All they ever do really is look for food and water, and maybe wasn't that they were teaching me, but I was learning from them. Maktub, the merchant said finally, what does that mean? You would have to have been born in a rap to understand, he answered, but in your language it would be something like it, and it is written in. As he smothered the coal in the hookah, he told the boy that he would begin to sell tea in the crystal glasses. Sometimes there's just no way to hold back in rivers. The men climbed the hill and they were tired when they reached the top, but they were saw a crystal shop that offered refreshments, tea. They went in to drink the tea, which was served in beautiful crystal glasses. My wife never thought of this, said one, and he thought some crystal. He was entertaining guests that night, and the guests would be impressed by the beauty of the glassware. The other man remarked that tea was always more delicious when it was served in crystal because he alone was retained. The third said that it was a tradition in Orient to use crystal glasses for tea because it had magical powers. Before the long news spread, and a great many people began to climb the hill to see the shop that was doing something new in a trade that was so old. Other shops were open that served tea and crystal, but they weren't at the top of a hill, and they had little businesses. Eventually, the merchant had to hire two more employees. He had two enormous quantities of tea along with crystal, and his shop was sold out by men and women with a thirst for new things. And anyway, the months passed. The boy awoken before dawn. It had been 11 months and 9 days since he had first set foot on the African continent. He dressed in his Arabian clothing of white lining bought especially for this day. He put his headcloth in place and secured it with a ring made a camel skin, wearing his new sandals and described the stars silently. The city was still sleeping. He prepared himself a sandwich and drank some hot tea from a crystal glass. Then he sat in the sun-filled door, smoking the hookah. He smoked in silence, thinking of nothing and listening to the sound of the wind that brought the scent of the desert. When he had finished his smoke, he reached into one of his pockets and sat there for a few moments regarding what he had withdrawn. It was a bundle of money enough to buy himself 120 sheep, a return ticket, and a license to import products from Africa into his own country. He waited patiently for the merchant to awaken and open the shop. Then the two went off to have some more tea. I'm leaving today. Said the boy, have the money I need to buy my sheep, and you have the money you need to go to Mecca. The old man said nothing. Will you give me your blessing? Asking the boy, you have helped me. The man continued to prepare his tea, saying nothing. Then he turned to the boy, I am proud of you. He said, you brought a new feeling into my crystal shop, but you know that I am not going to go to Mecca. Just as you know that you're not going to buy your sheep. Who told you that? Asked the boy, startled. Might have said the only crystal merchant, and he gave the boy his blessing. The boy went to his room and packed his belongings. They filled 3 sacks. As he was leaving, he saw in the corner of the room his old shepherd pouch. It was punched up, and he had hardly bought of it for the long time. As he took his jacket out of the pouch, thinking to give it to someone in the streets, 2 stones fell on the floor, rhyming. Erming and thumbing. It made the boy think of the old king, and it started him to realize how long it had been since he had thought of him. Nearly a year he had been working, necessarily thinking only of putting aside enough money so that he could return to Spain with pride, never stopped dreaming. The old king had said, follow the army. The boy picked up Erming and Thimmy, and once again had the strange sensation that the old king was nearby and had worked. I'm going to go back to doing just what I did before, the boy thought, even though the sheep didn't teach me to speak Arab, but the sheep had taught him something even more important than where there was a language in the world that everyone understood, a language the boy had used throughout the time that he was trying to improve things at the shop. It was the language of things accomplishing with love and purpose as a part of something believed in. The desire was no longer a strange city, and he felt that just as he had conquered this place, he would acquire the world. When you want something, all the universe to help achieve it, the old king had said something, but the old king hadn't said anything about being robbed or endless desert or about people who knew what their dreams are but don't want to realize them. The old king did it. Hadn't told him the pyramid were just a pile of stones or that anyone could build one in his backyard. And he had forgotten to mention that when he have enough money to buy a flock larger than one you had before, you should buy it. The boy picked up the pouch and put it with his other things. He went down the stairs and found the merchant waiting on a foreign couple with the two of customers walking about the shop, drinking tea from crystal glasses. It was more activity than usual for the first time in the morning. From where he stood, he saw for the first time that he could merchant. The hair was very much like the chair, excuse me, like the hair of the old king. He remembered the smile of the candy seller on his first day in Tanjuri when he had nothing to eat and nowhere to go. That smile had almost been like the old king smile. It almost as if he had been here and left his mark in. He thought, and yet none of these people has ever met the old king. On the other hand, he said that he always appeared to help those who are trying to realize their destiny. He left without saying goodbye to the crystal merchant. He didn't want to cry with the other people there. He was going to miss the place and all the good things he had learned. He was more confident in himself, though he felt as thought he could conquer the world. But I'm going back to the field that I know to take care of my flock again. He said that to himself, certainly, but he was no longer happy with his decisions. He had worked for an entire year to make a dream come true, and that dream, minute by minute, was becoming less important. Maybe becoming that wasn't really his dream. Who knows? Maybe it's better to be like the crystal merchant, never go to Mecca, and just go through life wanting to do so. He thought again, trying to convince him. But as he held Erming the thumb in his hand, they had transmitted to him the strength and will of the old king by coincidence, or maybe it was an omen. The boy thought he came to the bar he had entered on his first day there. The thief wasn't there, and the owner brought him a cup of tea. I can always go back to being a shepherd. The boy thought, I learned how to care for sheep and haven't forgotten how that's done, but maybe I'll never have another chance to get the pyramid in Egypt. The old man wore a breastplate of gold, and he knew about my past. He really was a king, a wise king. The hill of Andalusia were only 2 hours away, but there was an entire desert between him and the pyramids. Yet the boy felt that there was another way to regard his situation. He was actually 2 hours closer to his shirt. The fact that 2 hours had stretched into an entire year didn't matter. I know why I want to get back on my flock. He thought I understood sheep. They are no longer a problem and they can be good friends. On the other hand, I don't know if the desert can be a friend, and it's in the desert that I have to search for my treasure. If I don't find it, I can always go home. I finally have enough money and all the time I need. Why not? He suddenly felt tremendously happy. He could always go back to being a shepherd. He could always become a salesman again. Maybe the world had other hidden treasures, but he had a dream and he had met with a king that doesn't happen to just anyone. He was planning as he left the bar. He had remembered that one of the crystal merchant suppliers support his crystal by means any caravans that crossed the desert. He held in his hand because of those two stones. He was once again on the way to his treasure. I am always nearby when someone wants to realize their destiny. The old king had told him what could it cost to go over the supplier's warehouse and find out if the pyramids were really that far away. The Englishman was sitting on a beach in a structure that smelled of animal sweat, and dust. It was part warehouse, part coral. I never thought I'd end up in a place like this. He thought he was left through the pages of Chemical Journey, 10 years at the university, and here am I in a coral. But he had to move on, believe in omnis all his life and all his studies aimed at finding the one struggle language of the universe. First, he has studied Esperanto, then he worlds realized. Then the world religions, and now it was alchemy. He knew how to speak Esperanto. He understood all the major religions well, but he wasn't yet an alchemist. He had unrevealed the truth behind important questions, but his studies had taken him to a point beyond which he could not seem to go. He had tried in vain to establish a relationship with an alchemists, but the alchemists were strange people who thought only about themselves and almost a way refund to him. He know how they had failed to discover the secret of the master, the philosopher's stone, and for the reason kept their knowledge to themselves. He had already spent much of the fortune left to him by his father. Truly seeking the philosopher's stone, he had spent an enormous amount of time at the library of the world and had purchased all the rare important volumes on alchemy. And one he had read that many years ago, famous Arabian alchemist had visited Europe. It was said that he was more than important 2 years old, that he had discovered the philosopher's stone in the elixir of life. Englishman had been profoundly impressed by the story, but he would never have thought it more than just a myth. Had not a friend of his returning from it, it's from the end desert, told him about an Arab that was possessed of exemption powers. He lived at the Alpha, and his friends had said, people say that he is in 200 years old and is able to transform any metal into gold. The Englishman could not contain his excitement. He canceled all his commitments and pulled together the most important of his book. And now here he was sitting inside a dusty smell warehouse. Outside, a huge caravan was being prepared for a crossing of the Sahara and was scheduled to pass throughout. I'm going to find that damn alchemist. The Englishman thought. The older odor of the animals became a bit more tolerable. A young Arab also loaded down baggage and greeted the Englishman.